What's up, everybody? Christian Fowler here with Bluff City Media, and I am here with Mason Dashiell. She is our digital content reporter, our sideline reporter, and we are currently in Fort Worth, out in the courtyard. It's a little windy, if you can't tell, but we're improvising, and we got this new banner out here in Fort Worth. As I mentioned, AAC Tournament, and just before we get started, we want to recap the UCF game, talk a little bit about it. Before we get started, I just want to give a big shout out and a big thank you to Coaching for Literacy for sponsoring our trip. Coaching for Literacy does amazing things promoting childhood literacy, so just big shout out to them. So first things first, as I mentioned, we are in Fort Worth. We traveled this morning. Kenny stuck it out on the drive and we made it here. First game, quarterfinal for Memphis after the bye. How did we feel about it? Were we nervous going into it?
I was. Honestly, I feel like it was like a 50-50 chance after, they beat us in a double overtime, and then we literally won with a buzzer beater shot. So I was kind of nervous going into it, but I was also excited for it. I felt like if we could get past UCF, we hopefully will be good for the rest of the tournament. But overall, I was pretty impressed by the game. How about you?
Yeah, no, it was awesome. So this was one I think we were all a little bit worried about. Everyone kind of had that little bit of timidness about UCF because they played Memphis so close in the first two games. But when you look back, there was no Malcolm Dandridge in the first game. Had injuries in the second game. Kendric Davis leaving early in the first half before the second half, not being able to finish the game. Offense sputtered, and it took a last-second layup from DeMario Franklin to win that game. So there was a little bit of nervousness on a lot of people's parts, a lot of fans' parts. But fortunately, Memphis didn't struggle too bad. There were some moments when UCF got back into the game, but ultimately got the win. And that's all that matters. They're moving on to the quarterfinal. But the biggest story of the game, Kendric Davis and DeAndre Williams, both 30-point games. What was it like? We were all on the floor down there.
Yeah.
What was it like watching them really have a historic performance?
I mean, I love them together. I think they're the dynamic duo. They're best friends. They both challenge each other, I feel like, to do better on and off the court. And so whenever they're brought into press conferences, they always talk about how they feed off of each other's energy. And tonight was just one of those nights. So both of them scoring over 30 points, totaling 68 points total. That's crazy. Compared to the rest of the season, they said that was the first time that's been done in the American Conference history. So,
yeah.
And to see them, it's not just about one trying to be better than the other. I really do feel it's not really that much of a competition. It's just more of they build on each other and they just want to be better.
So yeah, as you mentioned, the first teammates in AAC tournament history, 30-point games. DeAndre, 35 and 13. Kendric Davis, 33. Memphis hit 9 threes in tonight's game.
That's
they
crazy.
were all between DeAndre and Kendric.
Yeah.
They hit every single three. They made pretty much all the plays. Chandler Lawson was the third leading scorer with 4 points. So it really was. It was a historic performance. I mean, you can't come into a game expecting two teammates to put up 30-point games each. So it was a fun game. It was a back and forth game. Memphis was up by 10 at the half. Didn't take UCF long to come back and tie it up. And eventually, I think they took a 1-point lead.
I think they did, yeah.
At one point. But like I said, fun game. You get the 30 points from the teammates. It's the feel-good story. So I want to talk about what has to happen moving forward for Memphis to continue into the tournament, maybe make the final, maybe win the final, and come home with an AAC championship. But first, let's talk about the press conference. We talked to Penny, we talked to Kendric, we talked to DeAndre after the game.
Right.
What were overall thoughts from the press conference?
I feel I don't want to say emotional, but for both of them to be seniors and the relationship they both have with Penny, I kind of feel it was a bittersweet moment kind of in the press conference room. And they both were just bragging on each other so much.
Yeah.
And especially Penny talking about how he wanted to bring in Kendric and this season, and he was really fighting to get him on the team. And so I feel he said that he wanted to get Kendric on the team to get DeAndre to stay.
Right.
And I definitely think that happened, and it was really neat to hear Penny's side of the story and the emotion that's behind these two players.
Yeah, and this is clearly a game they wanted, they had to have. I feel at this point in the season they're not 100% locked to make the tournament, but it's pretty much a done deal that they're going to make a tournament. I think I saw right before we started recording, John Gassaway at ESPN moved them from a should be in to a lock. Which is obviously good news. We felt good about it anyway, but now we know they're in. They don't really have to play worrying about that anyway. I don't think they were coming into this, but Penny talked a lot about what DeAndre and Kendric mean to this team. It's been obvious all year. We've
Right.
talked about it on all of our Memphis shows, just how important those two guys are. The offense moves as they move. The defense moves as they move, like they are the leaders and captains for this team. So obviously would be super cool for them to kind of lead out into the tournament with a conference championship, but we'll see. We got to get to that point. And the biggest thing, in my opinion, moving forward is the supporting cast has to step up, because DeAndre and Kendric aren't going to score 30 points every night. So
I agree.
from watching this team, from watching this game, that they could have lost. There were moments when UCF took control of the momentum, and it had to be one of those two guys stepping up. How important do we think it is for the rest of the guys, Elijah McCadden, Jonathan Lawson, Chandler Lawson, Demario Franklin, Malco? How important is it for these guys to play well the rest of the weekend to get Memphis to where they want to go?
I think it's obviously super important. And, when you just have like one player, or even two for that matter, scoring all of your points, that's not necessarily how we're going to beat teams such as Houston.
Yeah.
So back when we were playing Wichita State and Demario Franklin had 12 points, Elijah McCadden, I think he had 9. And then there was one game where he had 19 points, which is obviously like insane. That doesn't really happen. But if we have players like that can step up to the plate and like score points for the team, and we don't just have like two players scoring 30 points, which yes, that's great. But if we had that on top of other players scoring like 9, 12, anything from that, it would definitely put a boost on Memphis. And I feel like that's what we're going to have to need in order to beat Houston. Yeah.
And another thing that was touched on in the press conference tonight, Alex Lomax did not play in the second half. Penny was asked for an update on his situation. He said it's not 100% given that he is or is not going to play in tomorrow's game. So we'll be waiting and seeing on that. We'll see during warm-ups if he tries to give it a go, and then obviously at the beginning of the game. But in this kind of environment, if you look at conference tournaments around the country, defense is of the utmost important. Like, there's a lot of low-scoring games in conference tournament. Defense is important. Alex Lomax is probably the best defender on the team. What does it look like if he doesn't play? Is Memphis in trouble if they don't have Alex Lomax, or can they weather that storm because of the stars that they have?
I mean, again, like, the problem I feel like is inconsistency, and they even talked about that in the press conference. They're like, consistency is key. So like tonight, that for me was like rare. Like, obviously we haven't seen that. That was incredible. So for this to happen again tomorrow, I don't see that happening. Like, I feel like this was just like, okay, it happened. And it got to the point tonight where I didn't even realize Alo wasn't playing because of how good Kendric
the team was
doing.
Playing.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, everybody was doing so good. It was like, okay, we didn't need him. But there's going to come a time, maybe tomorrow, where we're going to need him.
Right.
And for his ankle to be hurting, it would be important for him to like step up if he can play, because again, I feel like tonight isn't going to happen every single time.
Yeah, no, absolutely you can't. And Kenny, I'm going to keep talking here for a minute. I need you to tell me who won the Tulane-Wichita State game. Tulane did win. Okay, so we just got word from Kenny that Tulane won. So Memphis gets the revenge game.
Yep.
And we got about 20-mile-an-hour winds coming down right now, so we're going to try to keep this up. We're going to push this back a little bit. This is why recording outside is always an adventure, because you never know what's going to happen. But at least it looks good. Okay, so if this falls on us, everybody can laugh, and I'll laugh at myself. It'll be all right. So Memphis will play Tulane on Saturday, 4 p.m. Yep, tomorrow, 4 p.m.
Yep.
I'm getting a little nervous. Let's push this back again. It'll be all right. If it falls, it falls. So Memphis is going to play Tulane. We don't know if they have Alex Lomax or not. We know the role players need to step up. This is a team that during the regular season beat them twice. There were only two teams that swept Memphis in the American this year, Tulane and Houston.
Right.
Tulane beat them on the road January 1st, New Year's Day, and then beat them at Memphis, their first loss in Memphis in over a year, I believe, at the time. So it's a neutral site, but Memphis fans showed out today. It's gonna feel like a home game for Memphis against Tulane, which is a good thing. I think Tulane had maybe a decent crowd in there. We left about maybe a little before the midway point of the first half, Tulane and Wichita State, from the arena. But Tulane didn't have the crowd Memphis did. Memphis is going to have a good crowd, but they've got to get to a team that beat them twice. How do you feel about the Tulane rematch?
I was honestly more nervous for this matchup than Tulane, but the first loss, I'm not going to say like should have happened, but I see it as understandable because I feel like we did not, like watching that game, we did not deserve to win.
Right.
And even the players were saying that. And for some reason, Memphis just plays bad at Tulane for whatever reason.
Yeah.
It's just been like that. And New Year's Day maybe played a factor, but the game at home was just like unacceptable. Like literally I looked up and I was like, there's no way that Memphis just lost this game.
Woo!
Well.
All right.
We're good.
We're maybe good. We're going to try to wrap this up soon before we get crushed. All right, go ahead.
But yeah, so overall, I feel like the game at home against Tulane, Memphis should not have lost, but players like DeAndre Williams said that they lost that game. Like it was a personal loss. Every single player like wasn't playing to the best of their ability. So I feel like that was Why did this just like get 5 miles an hour higher?
Because it's how it happens. It's the way that it works.
That's crazy.
Continue.
But yeah, so I feel like I can't see us losing to Should I just leave it?
Yeah, that's fine. Keep going.
Okay. I can't see us losing to Tulane 3 times, but that's just my opinion. What about?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think this is a game that Memphis could and should win. They're the better team. They're the more talented team. Tulane obviously has Jalen Cook and Jalen Forbes, who are 2 of the better players in the conference, but Memphis's 2 players are better. Memphis is a better overall team. This is tripping me out. If they play the way that they're capable of playing, then they can absolutely win this game and move on to the final. So it should be fun. Like I said, I know the environment's going to be fun. We were shown today that the environment's going to be fun. Should be good. 4 o'clock on Saturday, Memphis will take on Tulane, and we will be doing a pregame coverage tomorrow, post-game coverage. We'll
probably do it inside.
Yeah, we will probably do it inside. That's probably a good idea. We tried. We shot for the stars, and we did not land on the moon. We landed straight back down on Earth. But it should be fun. Head over to bluffcitymedia.co. We'll have all of our post-game, all of our features there from the Memphis Tiger side, also on the Memphis Grizzly side. Subscribe on YouTube at Bluff City Media, and we will see you back here tomorrow.